Number 1. The Aklut. Far north, where the Bering Sea bites the ice, Inuit hunters once watched the shore for signs that did not belong. By the late 1800s, collectors of Arctic stories were writing down a strange being called the Aklut, an orca in the water, but a wolf when hunger pulled it onto land. In 1900, Edward William Nelson noted related Bering Sea beliefs. Its story lived where sea, snow, and survival met. The warning came in the tracks. A hunter might find deep wolf prints crossing the frozen beach, then see them lead straight to black water and vanish. No animal stood there. No body floated nearby. In a place where broken ice could take a person in seconds, that trail felt like more than a footprint. It felt like the sea had grown legs. The Aklut was not only a monster for dark nights, it carried a lesson about respect. Inuit families knew that the ocean gave food, but it also took lives. Seals, whales, storms, and thin ice all demanded careful eyes. So the tale gave danger a shape children could remember. If the wolf walks into the sea, do not follow it. Even now, the image stays sharp. White snow, blue dusk, and a line of prints ending at the waves. Maybe the Aklut was born from real fear, from cracks in the ice, from orcas rising like shadows. But the legend still feels alive because it understands the Arctic truth. Out there, land and sea are never fully separate, and the next track may be a warning. Number 2. Enchanted Rock. In the Texas Hill Country, Enchanted Rock rises like a giant pink moon caught in the earth. Long before hikers climbed its dome, Tonkawa, Apache, and Comanche people treated the place with care. The granite hill was not just stone. At night, it seemed to breathe, groan, and glow. And those signs turned it into one of Texas's most powerful old landmarks. The stories spoke of ghost fires flickering on the summit after dark. Some said spirits moved across the rock. Others heard creaks and low moans as if something huge slept underneath. Later, scientists gave calmer answers. Rainwater and minerals can glitter under moonlight, and hot granite can pop and groan as it cools. But explanations did not erase the feeling. For people crossing this hard country, Enchanted Rock was easy to see for miles. It became a guidepost, a lookout, and a place where the sky felt close. The rock had watched dry seasons, raids, storms, Spanish trails, and settler roads pass around it. That is why the legend never sounds small. It belongs to a landscape that remembers everyone who crossed. Today, when the sun falls and the dome turns purple, the old stories make sense again. You can hear wind slide over bare granite and imagine a fire where no camper stands. Maybe it is only water, stone, and cooling air. Still, Enchanted Rock keeps its name because some places do not need to prove they are alive beneath the stars. Number 3. The Ghost Bride. In an old Pawnee story from the plains, a young man came back to his village expecting voices, cooking fires, and relatives at the lodges. The Pawnee had long lived across what is now Nebraska and Kansas, where family ties and spoken promises helped hold village life together. Instead, the place felt strangely empty. Then he saw the young woman he loved. She was gentle and familiar, so his fear loosened. He did not yet understand that she had already crossed into the spirit world. She agreed to marry him, but she gave him one rule. For 4 days she had to stay hidden behind a curtain, and he must tell no one who she was. A word was not decoration. It was a bond, and patience was part of the test. For a little while, hope returned to the empty village, but curiosity is a heavy thing. When others pressed him, the young man spoke her name before the time was done. The curtain no longer protected the secret. The bride vanished, not in anger alone, but because a promise had been broken. Love could not hold what trust had lost. One careless moment is enough. The young man wanted happiness, but he did not guard the rule that made it possible. In many old stories, spirits do not punish with noise. They simply leave. That is why the ghost bride still lingers in memory. It reminds listeners that some doors open only once, and some words cannot be pulled back. Number 4. Mysteryhorror, the underwater panther. Across the Great Lakes, many Algonquian-speaking peoples told of Mysteryhorror, the powerful underwater panther. Among the Ojibwe, the name is often linked with the Great Lynx. It was not a simple lake monster. It belonged to deep water, storms, copper, and the hidden world below the waves, where ordinary people entered only with respect. Mysteryhorror was described in many ways, part wildcat, part serpent, sometimes with horns or a spiked back. Its home was tied to Lake Superior, where native copper had been worked for thousands of years before Europeans arrived. In the 1600s, French missionaries heard that copper was not just metal to take. It carried power, and the underwater being guarded it closely. That made the legend a warning about greed. A canoe on calm water could still be in danger if the traveler forgot humility. Sudden waves, storms, or strange sounds from the lake could be read as Mysteryhorror's anger. Offerings, prayers, and careful behavior showed that people understood. The water was alive with forces bigger than themselves. Even today, the Great Lakes can change from glass to danger fast. The old stories give that danger a face with shining eyes beneath the surface. Mysteryhorror endures because it says something true. Treasure is never free if it is taken without respect. The lake may look quiet, but in the legend, something ancient is still watching from below, patient and unseen. Number 5. Chaco Canyon. In northwestern New Mexico, Chaco Canyon sits under a huge desert sky, silent now, but once full of movement. From about 850 to 1250 CE, ancestral Pueblo people built great houses of stone there, including Pueblo Bonito, Chetroquetl, and Una Vida. By around 1050, Chaco had become a major center for ceremony, trade, planning, and power. The builders cut sandstone, carried timber from distant mountains, shaped rooms, kivas, plazas, and roads, and placed many structures with deep attention to the sun, moon, and horizon. This was not a lost city made by mystery people. It was human skill, patience, and knowledge, created by ancestors whose descendants still hold the canyon as a sacred place. Because of that, the haunting stories around Chaco feel different from ordinary ghost tales. Visitors speak of whispers in the wind, lights near ruins, and a heavy silence at solstice time. Those reports cannot be proven like a wall or a doorway, but they show how strongly the canyon affects people who walk through it after sunset alone. Even broken walls seem to have purpose. The desert keeps the footprints, the stars return to the same paths, and the stones still face the sky. Whether the voices are spirits, wind, or imagination, the canyon leaves one clear thought behind. Something important was built here, and it has not fully gone from the world. Number 6. Canatila, the woods elves. In old Lakota and Dakota woodland stories, the Canatila lived where the trees stood thick and the paths grew quiet. Their name is often translated as little tree dwellers, and they were pictured as small forest spirits, not simple monsters. They belonged to the hidden side of the woods, where a hollow trunk could feel like a doorway, and every leaf might hide a listener. People said the Canatila could appear in dreams, sometimes playful, sometimes serious. A hunter resting beside the trees might wake with a warning in his mind, or a child might remember a tiny voice telling him not to harm a certain place. In stories like these, the forest was not empty wood. It had watchers, messengers, and rules older than any trail. That made the legend practical, as well as magical. Families taught children to move carefully, to respect old trees, and to understand that every branch and animal had a place. The Canatila were small, but their lesson was large. The quietest beings could carry the strongest message from the spirit world. So the woods had to be treated as a home. At dusk, when leaves turn black against the sky, it is easy to imagine them peeking from bark cracks and high branches. Maybe they were dreams. Maybe they were the forest speaking in a shape people could remember. Either way, the Canatila still make the woods feel alive, as if every tree is listening before the night fully falls at all. Number 7. The Man Who Wrestled with a Ghost. In a Teton Sioux tale printed in 1913 by Catherine Barry Judson, a young man traveled alone across the plains and into dark timber. The story begins with an owl calling from the trees, a sign that the night ahead would not be ordinary. He made a small fire, lay down with his blanket, and tried to meet the darkness without fear, the way a traveler had to. At midnight, a crying woman came near, calling for her son. She wore old clothing and moved like someone from another time. The young man stayed still as she lifted his foot again and again, testing him like a body on the ground. When she drew a rusty knife, he sprang up, and the strange figure fled screaming into the trees. Morning showed a burial scaffold nearby. The next night brought a second spirit. This one asked for food, and the young man first denied having any, but the ghost knew. So he shared wasna, a mix of buffalo meat, fat, and berries, and offered tobacco. Then the robe slipped, showing bones beneath. Smoke passed through the ribs, and the ghost challenged him to wrestle. The living and the dead had made a bargain. The fight turned on firelight. Near the flames, the ghost weakened. In the dark, it grew strong. As dawn came, the young man kicked brush into the embers. The fire rose, and the ghost fell apart. The tale does not end with noise, but with a warning. Courage matters, yet respect matters more when the dead step in close. Number 8. The Piazza. Near Alton, Illinois, the Mississippi River runs below tall limestone bluffs, a place every traveler once had to watch with care. In 1673, Father Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet recorded seeing painted monsters high on the rocks. They described horns, red eyes, scales, and a curling tail, though the later wings of the Piazza bird were not part of that first report. The image became famous because it watched over a dangerous bend of water. Currents, cliffs, wind, and river traffic made the area feel powerful even before the legend grew. Some modern scholars connect the figure to older traditions of underwater panthers and other mighty beings tied to water, storms, and the lower world. That would fit the river's force. In 1836, writer John Russell helped turn the painting into a dramatic tale of a man-eaten bird defeated by Chief Uatoga and brave warriors. Later historians questioned how much of Russell's version was invention. Still, his story gave the painted creature a voice, and Alton never fully let it go. A mystery became a landmark. The original image vanished as the bluff was changed and quarried, but a modern mural still looks over the road and river. That is why the Piazza feels half history, half a warning. Something was painted there before Europeans arrived, something fierce enough to stop travelers in their tracks. Number 9. Judaculla Rock. In Jackson County, North Carolina, near Cullowhee, a large soapstone boulder sits covered with ancient marks. Today, it is called Judaculla Rock, and in 2013, it was added to the National Register of Historic Places. Some of its carvings may date from about 500 AD to 1700, long before modern roads crossed the mountain valleys and before many written records. To Cherokee tradition, the rock is tied to Tsul Kalu, often called Judaculla, a powerful giant and master of game. The old stories say he watched the mountains, animals, and hunters. The markings on the stone are linked to his presence, including the famous hand-like sign that people often connect with his supernatural touch and warning. But Judaculla Rock is more than a scary legend. It is an archaeological place and a sacred cultural site. The carvings show how long people return to this valley to mark, remember, teach, and pray. The Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians remains one of the important partners in protecting its meaning today. That care keeps the story alive. Stand near the rock and the story feels close to the ground. The boulder is not hidden in a museum. It rests where rain, leaves, and mountain air still touch it. The mystery is not only what each symbol means, but why so many hands felt the need to leave a sign there. Number 10. Kalupalik. A Along the Arctic shore, where sea ice can crack without warning, Inuit families told children about the Kalupalik. She was said to live below the water, near the edge of the floes, waiting where a careless step could become deadly. Her story was frightening, but it carried a clear purpose. Stay away from thin ice and listen when elders warn you. That is why the warning stayed strong. In many versions, the Kalupalik has green skin, long hair, long nails, and an amautic, the parka used by Inuit women to carry children. People said she hummed or tapped from under the ice. That sound pulled curious children toward the water, and then the creature would rise and carry them away beneath the cold surface where no parent could follow. The legend worked because the danger was real. In the Arctic, a playful moment near the shore could turn into a life or death mistake. Ice shifts, water hides under snow, and the sea can look calm even when it is not safe. So the Kalupalik gave danger a face that children could picture and remember. Fear became a tool for protection. At night, the tale becomes easy to believe. Wind moves over the ice, the ocean knocks below, and every small sound seems to come from under your feet. Maybe the Kalupalik was a warning shaped into a spirit. Maybe that was enough. The story still whispers one simple rule. The edge of the ice is never a place to play, even when it looks still. Number 11. Ogopogo, the spirit of the lake. On the long blue body of Okanagan Lake, the old name came before the tourist name. Many Shilks people speak of Enha'itk, the sacred spirit of the lake, while outsiders later turned the story into Ogopogo, a serpent-like mystery. The lake itself is deep, cold, and narrow, a place where wind can change the water before a traveler is ready. Old crossings were not taken lightly. Families moving by canoe understood that the water had power and deserved thanks. Later settler stories, especially in the 1800s, describe strange shapes, wakes, and something large moving below the surface. By the 1920s, the name Ogopogo had become famous, but the older teaching was never just a monster tale. The story asks people to travel with humility. A person who looks at the lake only as a playground misses the point. The spirit reminds listeners that water feeds communities, carries canoes, hides storms, and can take a life in a moment. Respect was not fear alone. It was a way to stay alive and keep balance with the land. The warning sounded old, but useful in rough weather. Even today, when a dark line slides across Okanagan Lake, people stop and stare. Maybe it is wind, otters, waves, or imagination. But the old feeling remains stronger than any photo. The lake seems to hold a memory beneath its surface, and the story leaves one quiet warning behind. Cross carefully, give thanks. Number 12. The Chenoo. In Wabanaki, stories from the Northeast, the Chenoo was not born as a simple beast. Passamaquoddy, Mi'kmaq, and related traditions describe a terrible ice giant, often said to have once been human. Coldness entered the heart through greed, cruelty, or dark power, and the person changed into something huge, hungry, and almost lost. These stories came from cold winter lands. The Chenoo lived where winter pressed hard on the trees. In some tales, its heart was made of ice, and no fire seemed warm enough to reach it. Villagers feared its steps in the snow because a Chanu was stronger than any ordinary hunter. Yet the stories did not always end with the spear. Sometimes the true battle was fought with kindness. One remembered tale tells of a young girl who met a Chanu and did not answer fear with fear. She called him grandfather and treated him like someone who might still return to himself. That small act mattered. Warm words, food, and care began to soften what violence could not break, and the monster's frozen heart finally melted. The woods seemed to breathe again now. That is why the Chanu still feels powerful. The legend warns what can happen when a person lets selfishness freeze every human feeling. It also says that community, patience, and compassion can sometimes save what looks already lost. In the deep woods of winter, that lesson glows warmer than the fire. Number 13, Cahokia Mounds. Across the Mississippi River from present-day St. Louis, Cahokia once rose from the Illinois floodplain like a city of earth. Between about 1050 and 1350, Mississippian builders shaped plazas, homes, temples, and more than 100 mounds. At its height, thousands of people lived and worked there, long before European cities touched this region. Monk's Mound still dominates the site. It was built in stages and became the largest prehistoric earthen structure north of Mexico. Nearby stood circles of wooden posts, often called woodhenge, used to watch the sun and mark the seasons. Cahokia was not random. It was planned, measured, and tied to ceremony, farming, trade, and sky. The mystery is that a place so large became quiet. By the time Europeans recorded the area, the old city's name and many of its stories had already faded. Scholars study climate stress, politics, food supply, and social change, but no single answer explains the leaving. That silence gives the mounds their haunted feeling, heavy and old. Walk there now near evening, and the grass hills do not seem empty. They feel like covered, breathing memories. The wind moves over Monk's Mound, and a person can imagine drums, footsteps, and voices returning for 1 second, then gone again. Number 14, Cowi-Anukasha. The forest dwellers. In Choctaw folklore, the Cowi-Anukasha were the hidden forest dwellers of the old Mississippi woods. They were said to be only 2 or 3 feet tall, but their size did not measure their power. Their homes were deep in the forest, under large rocks, or inside small caves, where ordinary people could pass close and never see them, even at noon. Some stories say only prophets, healers, or children ever came near them. The Cowi-Anukasha knew plants, roots, and medicine that could help a village survive, but their knowledge was not handed over carelessly. A child who wandered into their world might be tested, because wisdom was dangerous in the hands of someone selfish or cruel. That made the test quiet, but serious and deep. In one version, the little people offer choices: weapons, harmful plants, or good healing herbs. The right choice shows the child's heart. If kindness and healing win, the Cowi-Anukasha may teach the secrets of medicine. If pride wins, the lesson may turn frightening. The forest gives gifts, but only to those who respect it. It teaches that power is not always loud, and the smallest beings may guard the most important knowledge. A light moving between trees, a cave under roots, a sudden hush in the woods, any of these could be a sign. The Kowi Anukasha are hidden, but the lesson is clear. Enter the forest with humility. Number 15. Dear Woman. Dear Woman, sometimes called Dear Lady, is not one single story told the same way everywhere. Her image appears in several native traditions of the plains, woodlands, and beyond. Often she looks like a beautiful woman at first, until someone notices the deer hooves beneath her dress. That small detail changes everything. In many stories, Dear Woman appears near dances, roads, or lonely places where people think no one is watching. She may test a person's character. Those who act with respect may only glimpse her and go home shaken. Those who bring harm, lies, or cruelty may discover too late that beauty has hidden power. For many listeners today, Dear Woman is remembered as more than a warning. She is also a protector, especially in modern retellings that connect her with care for women and children. The old lesson remains family safe, but firm. A person's true nature is shown by how they treat others when they believe there are no witnesses, no lights, and no easy excuses. At night, the legend becomes easy to picture. Music slowly fades, dust rises from a dance ground, and a woman walks away from the cold light. For one quiet second, hooves show under the hem of her dress. Then she is gone into the trees. Number 16. Devil's Tower. Known to many plains tribes as Bear Lodge, the great stone tower rises above northeastern Wyoming like a pillar left from another world. The name Devil's Tower came from an 1875 military expedition, but native names such as Bear Lodge, Bear Teepee, and Tree Rock carry older meanings. In 1906, Theodore Roosevelt made it the first national monument in the United States. The most remembered story tells of children chased by a giant bear. As they prayed for help, the earth lifted them higher and higher beyond the bear's reach. The animal clawed at the sides, leaving the long vertical marks that still stripe the stone. In some tellings, the children became stars, shining safely above the black hills. The place is still sacred to many native nations, including Lakota, Cheyenne, Kiowa, Arapaho, Crow, and others. People come for prayer, fasting, and ceremony. Number 17. Tie Snake. In Muskogee Creek and other southeastern traditions, the tie snake lived beneath water, where rivers turn dark and currents hide their strength. Some versions connect it with the horned serpent, a powerful being with shining scales and deer-like horns. It was not always called evil, but no wise person treated it like an ordinary snake. The old stories often place the creature near deep pools, river bends, or places where water pulled harder than it seemed. In one creek tale collected in the late 1800s, a man becomes a tie snake after crossing a boundary he should have respected. Other accounts describe its strange power over game and its place in the hidden world below. That made the legend useful for everyday life. Children did not need a long lecture about undertows, floods, or slippery banks. They only needed to remember that something strong lived under the surface. If the river looked calm, that did not mean it was safe. The Thai snake was the warning swimming where eyes could not follow. It turned fear into memory for each child nearby. Even now, the story fits the southeast. Muddy water, cypress roots, insects humming, and a current that seems still until it pulls. Maybe the Thai snake was a spirit, maybe a memory of dangerous water shaped into a body. Either way, it teaches the same lesson every river teaches in time. Respect what moves below you because it may be stronger than it looks. Number 18. The Little Girl and the Ghost. In a Cheyenne story, a little girl cried so long that her tired mother spoke words she did not truly mean. In anger, she told the ghost to take the child away. The moment passed, but the words had already gone out into the world. Soon, an unseen spirit carried the girl from her home and took her toward a lonely mountain. The story is frightening because it begins with something ordinary. Parents get tired, children cry, sharp words slip out. But in this tale, anger becomes a door. The girl is left in the power of a ghost, and the family must learn that speech can have weight. What is said in haste may travel farther than anyone expects. The house feels empty at once, and silence becomes part of the punishment. On the mountain, the girl meets an older spirit who protects her. This wise being does not simply send her back at once. She teaches the child patience, careful listening, and how to follow instructions when danger is near. The ghost is defeated, but the lesson is deeper than rescue. The girl returns changed, and so does the meaning of the story. The Little Girl and the Ghost is not only about fear, it is about the care people owe each other inside a family. A cruel sentence, even spoken for a second, can echo like a footstep in the dark. That is why the tale still works softly but strongly. It asks every listener to pause before anger becomes a voice, and before a voice becomes a deep wound. Number 19. Skadagamuk, the Ghost Witch. In Wabanaki folklore, the Skadagamuk, sometimes called the Ghost Witch, belong to the cold forests of the Northeast. The Wabanaki world includes peoples such as the Mi'kmaq, Passamaquoddy, Penobscot, Maliseet, and Abenaki. In the stories, this spirit was formed when a harmful sorcerer died but refused to stay away from the living. By day, the Ghost Witch could seem lifeless, hidden like a corpse in the ground. By night, it rose again, moving through the dark with hunger and bad power. Some tales say it could bring sickness, curses, and fear into a village. That made it different from an ordinary ghost. It carried the danger of misused spiritual knowledge. It is usually defeated by fire, but the deeper lesson is community. A village has to watch together, act together, and protect one another through the worst part of the night. Fear loses strength when people refuse to stand alone. Every door matters, every watchfire matters, and every neighbor becomes part of the shield. So the story is more than a creature in the woods. It warns against using power to harm others, and it honors the strength of a united people. Picture a ring of firelight under black trees, faces turned outward, waiting for dawn. The ghost witch may rise from the dark, but the village rises too. Number 20. Mesa Verde. In southwestern Colorado, Mesa Verde holds stone homes built high inside cliffs. Ancestral Pueblo people lived in the region for centuries, farming corn, beans, and squash on the mesas. From about 1180 to 1300, many families built the famous cliff dwellings, using sandstone blocks, wooden beams, and mud mortar under the shelter of overhanging rock. Cliff Palace, Balcony House, and other dwellings were not movie ruins made for mystery. They were homes, storage rooms, kivas, workspaces, and gathering places. People climbed ladders, carried water, raised children, made pottery, and watched the seasons. Their engineering was careful, and their communities were tied to ceremony and land. By the late 1200s, the people left Mesa Verde and moved south, where their descendants live today among Pueblo communities. Scholars study drought, farming stress, social pressure, and change, but the leaving was not a disappearance into nothing. It was migration, survival, and the continuation of a living culture. The story did not end there. Still, Mesa Verde can feel haunted. Wind moves through empty rooms, and shadows slide across walls where families once worked and prayed. Number 21. The Flathead Lake Monster. Flathead Lake in northwestern Montana is wide, cold, and deep enough to hide almost anything the eye wants to imagine. Long before modern monster reports, Kootenai tradition told of a terrible being below the ice. In one old story, people were crossing the frozen lake when two girls saw antlers sticking up through the surface. Thinking they had found an animal trapped under the ice, the girls began cutting around the antlers. Then the ice shook. The creature below lifted its head, huge and alive, and the lake broke open around the people. Some escaped, but others were swallowed by the freezing water. After that, the lake was never only water, it had memory. In 1889, a steamboat captain named James C. Kerr reportedly saw something strange from the U.S. Grant with passengers aboard. Since then, many people have described a long, dark shape moving across Flathead Lake, sometimes like a serpent, sometimes like a giant fish. Skeptics point to waves, logs, sturgeon, or tricks of light. The reports still return. That is why the Flathead Lake Monster feels old. It joins a native warning with more than a century of local sightings. On a calm morning, the lake can shine like glass, but one black ripple can change the whole feeling. Maybe something moved. Maybe the water only breathed. Either way, Flathead Lake keeps its secret below. Number 22. The Chindi. In Navajo tradition, the Chindi is not a ghost story made for fun. It belongs to a serious way of understanding life, death, balance, and danger. Many descriptions say the Chindi leaves with a person's final breath and carries the painful parts that were not brought into harmony. The old fear was not that every dead person became a monster. The worry was that negative remains could linger near a body, a home, or personal things. Contact with that presence was believed to cause ghost sickness, with weakness, fear, or deep unease. Because of this, some customs aimed to let death happen away from the home so the spirit could pass into open air. This belief shaped real behavior. A hogan where someone died could be avoided or left behind, not because people lacked love, but because the living needed protection. Names, possessions, and places held power. The lesson was quiet but firm. Grief must be handled with respect, and not every trace of a life should be pulled back toward the living. The chindi remains powerful because it speaks to something human. After someone dies, a room can feel changed. Objects can feel heavy. Silence can feel watched. Navajo tradition gives that feeling a name, but also a rule. Do not disturb what should fade. Let the wind carry away what hurts, and let the living return slowly to balance. Softly again, the air feels open. Number 23, Serpent Mound. In Adams County, Ohio, the Great Serpent Mound curves across a high ridge above Brush Creek. It is more than 1,300 feet long, shaped like a winding snake, with a curled tail and an oval near its open jaws. Today it is a National Historic Landmark, but its builders left no written explanation for what the great earthwork meant. Archaeologists agree it was made by early native peoples of Ohio, though they still debate exactly when and by which culture. Nearby burial mounds connect the area with Adena and Fort Ancient traditions, and many scholars place the serpent itself in a sacred world of sky, earth, season, and spirit. Its shape was not random. It was a message written in soil. The mound is also tied to the sun. The serpent's head area is often associated with the summer solstice sunset, while other parts may connect to seasonal or lunar movements. Whether every alignment was intended or not, people still gather there to watch the light touch the horizon. The land turns the sky into part of the story. Number 24, Cachehota Palo. In Choctaw folklore, the Cachehota Palo lived near swamps and deep woods, where hunters moved carefully through mud, reeds, and shadow. It were neither fully human nor fully animal. Stories describe the upper body of a man and the legs and hooves of a deer. A strange forest being built for speed, surprise, and mischief. The name is often explained through its call. Cachehotapalo could creep close behind hunters and suddenly cry out in a voice like a woman's scream. Then it would race away before anyone could catch it. The creature did not usually harm people. Its pleasure came from frightening them, breaking their pride, and warning animals before hunters could strike. That makes the legend more clever than cruel. The Choctaw world was full of beings that taught people how to behave in the forest. A hunter who entered the swamp too proudly might learn that he was not the only watcher there. The Cachehotapalo protected the wild by making humans feel small for a moment, and sometimes that was enough. Imagine a hunter standing in still water at dusk. The frogs stop. A branch cracks behind him. Then a scream cuts through the cypress trees, and hoofbeats vanish into darkness. Nothing attacks, but the hunt is over. Number 25. Mahaha. In Inuit folklore, the Mahaha wandered the Arctic cold with a smile that never looked kind. Stories describe it as thin, blue, barefoot, and wild-haired, with long nails and a laugh that carried over the snow. It sounds terrifying, but the old tales often gave people more than fear. They gave them a way to think under pressure. The Mahaha's danger was strange. It did not always strike like a bear or grab like a sea spirit. It tickled its victims until they could not breathe, leaving a frozen smile behind. That made the creature both frightening and almost absurd, the kind of story children would never forget. In a land where cold itself could kill, laughter became a warning. But the Mahaha could be fooled. In some tellings, a person stays calm and asks the creature to bend down for a drink at a waterhole. When the Mahaha leans close, the human pushes it in, and the current carries it away. The lesson is clear. Panic feeds danger, but quick thinking can save a life even when strength is not enough. Picture the scene under a pale Arctic sky, blue shadows on snow, breath turning white, and a giggle moving against the wind. The Mahaha comes close, smiling too wide. Yet the story does not end with helpless fear. It ends with wit, courage, and survival. Number 26. Spook Hill. In Lake Wales, Florida, Spook Hill looks like a quiet stretch of road, but it has pulled travelers out of their cars for generations. The place is known as a gravity hill, where a vehicle placed in neutral seems to roll uphill. The town made the mystery famous in the 1900s, and the road later became one of Florida's strangest local landmarks. The legend gives the hill an older spirit. In one version, a great Seminole chief battled a giant alligator near the lake and died in the struggle. The chief was buried on the hill, and his restless power still pushes against anything that stops there. Science gives a simpler answer. The road is shaped so the horizon tricks the eyes. What appears to be uphill is actually a slight downhill grade, and without a clear line to measure it, the mind reads the land backward. But knowing the trick does not fully remove the feeling. A car still moves when your hands are off the wheel. It is a place where a real optical illusion and a local legend hold hands. Number 27. Nalusa Falaya, the long black being. In Choctaw tradition, Nalusa Falaya means the long black being, and the name alone feels like something seen only at the edge of firelight. Early accounts describe it as manlike, with a shriveled face, tiny eyes, long ears, and a long nose. It lived far from homes, in the thickest woods and near swamps, where people already moved with caution. Some stories say Nalusa Falaya did not always chase like an animal. It watched first. It approached hunters in the dark, sometimes sliding on its stomach like a snake, making the forest feel wrong before anyone understood why. Its power was tied to fear, confusion, and the uneasy moment when a person realizes he may not be alone. That made the legend more than a scare for children. The Choctaw world held many beings connected to the woods, and each one taught a different kind of respect. Nalusa Falaya reminded people that the deep forest could test the mind as much as the body. Pride, panic, and careless wandering were dangers of their own. At night, the story becomes easy to understand. A hunter hears leaves move, then nothing. A shape rises between trees, too tall and too thin to be a man. Maybe it is shadow, maybe fear, maybe something older. Nalusa Falaya does not need to leave tracks to remain frightening. It leaves behind the feeling that the woods were watching long before you entered. Number 28, Atasaya. In Zuni stories of the Southwest, Atasaya is a giant being remembered with fear and caution. Some old tales describe him as much larger than a man, with terrible strength and a hunger that makes him dangerous to anyone caught alone. The story belongs to a world of winter, caves, hunting, and sacred help, not simple campfire shock. One tale tells of a young huntress who went out to find rabbits for her hungry family. She was skilled and brave, but a storm trapped her in a cave. There, Atasaya found her. Too large to enter easily, he demanded what she had. The girl gave up her rabbits and tried to survive by staying calm, because fear would only feed the danger. The tension rises because she cannot overpower him. She can only endure, think, and wait. In Zuni tradition, the twin war gods, Ahayuta and Matsailima, are powerful protectors, and stories tell how they arrive to defeat threats that humans cannot face alone. Their rescue turns the tale from terror into protection and balance. Atasaya remains frightening, but the lesson is not hopeless. The young woman's courage matters, her skill matters, her refusal to break under pressure matters. Number 29, Ijirak. In Inuit folklore, the Ijirak belongs to the strange spaces of the Arctic, where snow, distance, and light can confuse even experienced travelers. In some North Baffin dialects, the name is connected with shape-shifting. The Ijirak can appear as an animal, a person, or something glimpsed only from the corner of the eye, but its red eyes cannot be hidden. These stories fit a land where mirages and white horizons can fool the senses. Mountains may look closer than they are. A caribou may seem to move strangely in blowing snow. A child or hunter who follows the wrong shape could lose the trail and wander into danger. So the Ijirak gave confusion a face that people could remember. Some tales say Ijirite hide children and leave them far from camp. Stone landmarks, or Inuksut, become important in these stories because they help lost travelers find their way back. The lesson is clear and practical. Do not trust every shape in the distance, and do not ignore the markers left by those who know the land. Picture the Arctic under a pale sun with no clear edge between earth and sky. A dark figure appears, then becomes a raven, then a bear, then nothing at all. Only red eyes remain in memory. Maybe the Ijirak is a spirit. Maybe it is the danger of being lost, given a body. Either way, the warning still travels with the wind. Number 30, Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta rises in Northern California like a white tower above forests, lava fields, and clouds. For thousands of years, native peoples have lived within sight of the mountain, including Shasta, Wintu, Modoc, Pitt River, Karuk, and other communities. Many traditions hold the mountain as sacred, tied to creation, prayer, purification, and powerful stories. Because the volcano can be seen from far across the region, it naturally became a landmark of memory. Some native stories speak of great beings, animal people, and spiritual forces connected to the mountain. Later settlers added their own rumors of hidden cities, mysterious lights, and unseen watchers, but those newer tales should not erase the older sacred meaning. The real history is already strong enough. Mount Shasta has watched trade routes, seasonal camps, volcanic landscapes, and waves of newcomers enter the region. To many native communities, it is not an abandoned mystery, but a living place that still deserves respect. The mountain is not only beautiful, it is part of identity, ceremony, and responsibility. At sunset, snow on the summit turns gold, then gray, then almost blue. Forests gather at the base, and the peak seems to float above the world.
If you enjoy this video, please click the like button.
And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.
See you in the next one.